24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Anytime you want it. Online and on demand. VercayRadio.com. The power of women.
Welcome to Her Business, Her Voice, Her Conversation with Margot Levette. Heard on VercayRadio.com and worldwide on iHeartRadio. Women reinvented to become entrepreneurs, authors, speakers. Their second act is full of courage, full of how-tos, and inspiration. Now, let's get into the show. Here's your host, Margot Levette.
Well, hello, everyone, and welcome to Her Business, Her Voice, Her Conversation. Oh, yeah, another episode, and I am overjoyed today. Right here, we have Miss Casey Grant. Now, this is a lady who is, oh, my goodness, she puts us I don't even have words for her. You're talking about reinvention. She is Ms. Reinvention. She was one of the first black stewardess for Delta Airlines. Oh, yeah, that's a big story right there. And then after she retired from Delta, she went on to graduate with her degree in interior design. She started back at school at age 50. Don't say it can't be done. She is the host of her own radio show, The Fly Girl Show on Blog Talk Radio, and let me tell you, she is the author of Stars in the Sky, a book that talks about the first black stewardesses and their stories of the first African-American flight attendants, Stars in the Sky. Without further ado, let me bring on Miss Casey Grant. Casey, welcome.
Well, thank you, boy. That was a wonderful introduction. Is that really me?
That's you. It's all you.
This is so exciting, and I love your platform, and because it is about us reinventing, and it is about us not saying, oh, well, hold drum, this is it. Now I just sit around and watch TV and do nothing. You have so much more to contribute to the world that you just have to get up and find out what it is. What's your passion?
Well, you know what, Casey? That takes us into letting people, and you have so much to give us. Lay a little background concerning who Casey Grant is. I understand that you come from a military family, so aviation and all of this is kind of in your blood. Kind of catch us up to who Casey Grant is, please.
Oh, I'd love to. Okay, yes. My father was in the Air Force. I started school in England, lived in Africa, Tripoli, Libya, North Africa. As a matter of fact, we were there when Gaddafi was in the beginning stages of becoming politically involved. And as a matter of fact, we had to evacuate because he said, oh, no more Americans over here. So we had to evacuate within days and get out of Libya. So my little adventurous life started, I guess, way back when I was like 9, 10 years old. And then moving forward, wanting to travel. I wanted to travel. We settled in Illinois and worked at the University of Illinois in the president's office. And from there was introduced to someone that could help me get a job with the airlines because I thought about joining the service. And then I was introduced to this wonderful dream of becoming a stewardess. And I say dream because they weren't hiring blacks during that time. So it was kind of an unforbidden career. And God is good, and I was blessed with the opportunity. But the history of the black flight attendant, which is what Stars in the Sky is really all about, is trying to find or declare our position in aviation history, because the battle started in 1956 with Patricia Banks Edmonston, who had the courage to take the airlines to court and sue them for segregation because of they were hiring blacks during that time, and she won her case. And because of her taking all the airlines to court, the doors were opened. The first black for Delta Airlines was in 1966, and her name was Patricia Grace Murphy. And so she opened the doors. I trickled in after her because Delta hired one, and then they would hire another one, some time in between. And then so that's why I say I was among the first, because that was the door had been open and I was able to squeeze in at that point. And so the book tells you about the things that happen as far as the racism and the crew members, the captains calling us the N-word to our face and not talking to us and not allowing us to serve them and telling us we weren't trained enough to work first class. And so that is just the beginning of a little introduction about me.
Oh, my goodness. Well, I tell you, from a very young age, you've seen a lot and experienced history, and then you step into history. Did you begin your training there in Illinois, in Robbins, Illinois, or the suburbs of Chicago? Where did you actually take your training, flight attendant training?
Well, I'm actually from Rantoul, Illinois. Well, being a military person, I was born in Florida. But I claim, and I was raised in Rantoul, Illinois, and the base that used to be there was called Chanute Air Force Base. My training with Delta Airlines took place in Atlanta, Georgia. So here's the little girl, the little military girl, venturing off and going down south. And because during my life I was protected. My father dealt with the racism, but I was protected from it because you were military, you went to the school together, you ate together, you shopped together. So I knew of these things, but I was not confronted with it. But that all changed when I became a stewardess for Delta Airlines and moving down south. And one of the things after graduating from training, my first introduction to racism is burning of crosses. They throw crosses on the expressway behind our apartment. And so, of course, I was familiar with Ku Klux Klan and all that type of thing, but to have it face-to-face was really a frightening thing, not being able to get an apartment, being refused. The white girls got it. As soon as we showed up, they didn't have any more. And so my roommate and I were just really, it was thrown on both of us, like a bucket of cold water, the realism.
Mm-hmm. Wow. As a sheltered young lady and a very intelligent young lady, where did you find the strength and the fortitude? Did it come from your family to even stick and stay, as they say? I mean, so many. You knew that you were one of the first. Where did you get the strength to just continue on this journey?
It does start with family. It does start with family. And my parents were very supportive of anything that we tried to do, and we had to excel because our parents didn't accept anything other than that. So that's where it starts. Self-pride, it starts with that too. And then the bottom line of it is no one's going to tell me that I can't have something that I want. I knew I was good enough, and I knew that I was going to do the job. There was just, failing was just not an option. And my parents I had the opportunity for the education to be able to handle these people, first of all. I spoke well enough, so it wasn't a matter of me not having the confidence to do that. And as you said, I felt that I was intelligent enough to do it. I passed everything that the white girls had done, so therefore I was intelligent enough to do all of that. And I also knew that by my succeeding, it opened up the doors for others to succeed. So we were the trailblazers, and we took pride in knowing that.
Gosh, that is simply, it's so important that you all did that. As a matter of fact, your book, Stars in the Sky, you have the retired William Lucy, retired International Secretary Treasurer of the American Federation of State, County, and Municipal Employees. He wrote something that was really, really, it caught my eye, and I'm just going to read a little something about that concerning your book. He says, Ms. Grant presents an incredible story of change in the lives of thousands of young, bright, talented, and professional African American women, as well as the change in the institutional culture of a major industry. You're part of that. he was able to write that and point that towards your book. That's saying something just because you were able to make history, be a part of history. So may I take my hat off to you right now and applaud you for what you've done.
Well, thank you. You know, I think that we were in the midst of it, and so at that point you do it. You know, the stories that I tell, as I said before, the captain, the crewman calling us the N-word to our face, and you had to handle that with dignity. But I also want to remind everyone, we were fighting for our civil rights in the sky, and others were fighting for civil rights on the ground. Martin Luther King, the marches and everything else, and so women were fighting for equal rights. So it was a very turbulent time. And that just happened to be aviation, our field, that we were declaring and fighting for our civil rights. And when you're in that battle, when you believe in something and you want it, no one can turn you around.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. The wheel is right there, and there's no looking back at all.
No one's going to tell you no. And you brought up Robbins, Illinois, and that's part of some of the things that are in my book. It's history. It's the black pioneers in aviation, the history. And Robbins, Illinois is a very important town or city to know, because that was when two black men who had been refused admittance to an aviation school. They built the first black-owned airstrip. They built the first black airplane. They built it they taught themselves because they weren't allowed to go to the school, so they listened. They took a job as a janitor, one of them did, and he listened to the lecture standing outside in the hall, and then he would go get the paperwork out of the garbage can, and at night they would study those papers, and they taught themselves how to fly and how to build an airplane.
Oh, my goodness.
That is history. That's aviation history that we don't know, and it's in the book. It's a lot of things that you would know. Betsy Coleman was the very first woman to get her pilot's license. And so we talk about, and she was a manicurist in Chicago, but no one was going to tell her that she couldn't fly. She didn't even speak French. She had to go to Europe to learn how to fly. A black woman in Chicago didn't know how to speak French, didn't know how to read it, and Ebony magazine helped finance this trip. So these are things, this is history. This is a wonderful part of aviation that people need to know. And I love to be able to, when I'm lecturing the young kids, to tell them this, because you have so much to be proud of. Mae Jemison being the first woman in space. People don't even know about that. They've forgotten it.
Yes. Oh. And you're bringing light to this in your book, Stars in the Sky.
Exactly.
Casey,
all of that.
Let me ask you about this thing of fear, because Dr. King and Dr. Abernathy, Reverend Jesse Jackson, all of them were on the ground fighting for our rights, and you ladies were in the sky. How did you deal with the element of fear?
We had each other. Simply put, we had each other, because what we would do is, if there were particular places, like for me, one of my instances was that Delta always paid for your rooms as a crew member. But when you got to these different hotels in the South, what happened to me and happened to many others, they would tell you that they didn't have a room. And so in my particular situation, they told me they didn't have any rooms in the enclosed building of the hotel. But they had a room for me in the back, in one of the rooms that was like an outside room. Now, it's late, it's dark, it's back in the back where all the trees, and it was very frightening. And they had riots in this town, and that's where I had to stay. I wasn't allowed to stay in the hotel part of it. And so you took it with pride. I mean, you learned how to protect yourself. You learned how to watch out. You learned that when we got together, the girls said, okay, listen, I just laid over in Jackson, Mississippi. Be careful of this, this, and this. Watch out for that, and that. And this is what we did. So it was like, once again, back in the slave days, what did we do? We sang songs to have messages. We did the drums to relate messages. And so that's what we did, word of mouth. We prepared each other before we went on a trip. And you armed each other with, be careful of this, the passengers are this, the agents are this. And so that's how we did it. Wow. We helped each other.
Mm-hmm. Camaraderie. Everybody was involved. All of you ladies were involved, and it band together and were family, it sounds like. Pretty much family.
Yeah, and we stuck together as, women, which is what a lot of our support always comes from. And we have to support each other. We have to encourage each other, and that's what we did. And we protected each other.
Well, 35 years. You were in the skies for 35 years. That is quite noteworthy.
35 fabulous years.
And you know what? When you can call them fabulous, that's saying something. That is really saying something. Will you just share a couple of the stories? 35 years, you've heard it all, you've seen it all. Will you tell us about a couple of really big things that happened to you while you were working as a stewardess? I know there are some stories that you'll take to the grave. Will you share a couple of things with us? Because some of these things I myself will never experience, but you experienced, and just tell us a few things.
Well, I will. I can tell you, like, one of the chapters of my book is the good, the bad, and the ugly, because the good is that you travel all over the world and you're exposed to so much. It's an education. Travel is it's an invaluable commodity to have, and an education that you just cannot pay for. And so doing that, I've met presidents. I've been at the White House. I've had the pleasure of meeting 3 presidents. I've been in the company of Jimmy Carter for 8 days, he and Rosalind, and working with them, and just met President and Michelle Obama. So Barack Obama and Michelle. So I just can't even. I'm so excited about that. I'm just still giggy gaga over that. And so that's the good things of it. The bad thing of it, of course, was the racism, the passengers not talking to you, being on layovers and being frightened. And you say the fear. Well, once you got into that room, you learned how to barricade yourself into the room. I always knew that if they were going to try to come into the room to get me, that they were going to have to put up a fight, because we barricaded ourselves in the rooms when we got there. Things that people never knew. They just saw you fresh and ready to go to work the next day. But it's the things that you had to do to be able to sleep peacefully, and things like that. Being attacked on the airplane. I was physically attacked on the airplane by a passenger that has left me with a permanent damage to a nerve in my neck. That's all in the book, but it's all one of these stories of the things you have to deal with the passengers. You have to learn how to be a psychiatrist, a babysitter, a nurse. We go through all of it, and we do it quite well because we know how to read people. You learn how to read people. You know how to analyze different situations and execute evacuation. There was a hijacking, and that plane was evacuated by a black crew member, several crew members. And this was in the 80s, so things had gone on and they had more blacks at that point. But it was because of the intelligence of these black leaders. They got all the passengers off that airplane safe and sound. And that's such an interesting story. And let me see what was, and another thing too, it gives you a lot of time. As I have said to you before, I started my reinvention back when I was 50. I went back to school to get my degree in interior design. And to show you determination, I got up at 3:30 in the morning, walked out the door at 4:30, was on the plane by 6, flew from Chicago to Cincinnati, from Cincinnati to LaGuardia. From LaGuardia, I took a cab to JFK. I got to the base. I did my paperwork. I changed my uniform. I flew 10 hours to go to Istanbul. I was also the supervisor on the plane, so I had all those duties. I got to my layover. I would sleep in my room. I'd rest a while, get up and do my homework, fly back the next day 10 hours, the same route, go back, and then I'd get up and go to school, and I was an A student. and I was the first student, the first female African-American speaker for my class. So you talk about reinventing, which is your theme of your program, which I love so much. It started then. It started that I can do it. No one can tell me I can't do this. I can do it. And I was an A student.
I love it. At age 50.
Yes.
And
yes.
Wait a minute. You were a supervisor. You were flying. I mean, you had time zones that you were going through. You had all of that at age 50.
Thank you.
You know?
Thank you. So reinvent yourself is a wonderful thing. It was so exciting. And then, and for the women, we all know, I mean, because this is what life does, but you're going through menopause. You're feeling like, what am I supposed to do? No one, you know, your kids are leaving school and you're just, there you are. Now you're that person again that you knew many years ago, but now you've kind of lost who you were or your dreams. Now it's time to pull it back out again. You can do it.
Yes. Oh, I'm so glad that you said that, because so many of us, the empty nest thing is very real.
Very real.
At 60, 62, 63, women are coming out of corporate America. They're hanging up their heels. You know, the Manolos are in the box right now, you know.
Yeah.
So there's no time to sit around. I love. Oh, my goodness. You know what? I wish that somebody could get in contact with Lee Daniels, and let's get this in film. I want to be able to go and watch this story unfold on the big screen. I truly, truly do. Stars in the sky, I want to see this. And Pharrell Williams, if you're listening, will you please do the soundtrack, because you're so phenomenal. You know, I think all these folks are a good match for your story. I'm just saying. I'm putting it on.
You know what?
Out.
And I'm just saying with you, because I agree with you, because it is a story. So I call it hidden history, because it is. And it is. This is our part in aviation. And I have so many more wonderful stories of the accomplishments of the things that we did do, the challenges that we had, that we were confronted with, that you will say, as you have said to me so many times, and the enthusiasm that's in your voice, because it is an exciting part of history that we don't know about.
Yes, not at all. You know, I mean, we get on the negative things, and my God, I am definitely not trying to downplay slavery or the struggle or anything. But there are in the midst of all of that, you have a good, solid story that we all can take pride in. I mean, we need to know about this. We need to buy the book, which is available at Amazon, Barnes & Noble, Wasteland Press, and if you have a Kindle, you can get this downloaded to your Kindle. You can do that from Amazon. You can get this story today. You know, it's as if the God, time, whatever you want to say, is allowing these stories to become known to us if we want to take time to pay attention. And I think it's time to pay attention.
Yes.
So.
It's time to know. It's time to take pride in another phase of, blacks we have accomplished so much, and it's been suppressed. And it's time for us to realize how wonderful we really are. We hear all the terrible stories about what we can't do and how, but these are the things that we have done, and that, you know, encourage the youth that you can do it. And for us who are reinventing, you can still become a stewardess. After your children are gone and you're in your 50s or your 60s. So if you had that dream as a young person, you still can do it.
Well, I tell you what, you are a major inspiration, and I'll keep saying it, stars in the sky, stories of the first African-American flight attendants. Get your copy today over on Amazon. It's available paperback and Kindle, or you can go on over to your local Barnes & Noble or check in there at Wasteland Press. I'm sure it's wastelandpress.com. So the doors are wide open, and there's no reason why you can't get a copy. And you know what? Hey, any filmmakers, anybody who wants to step up to the plate, and let's get this story told. So. gosh, I could go on and on and on. I am just exhilarated by your presence today. Thank you so very much.
You are so welcome. It's been such a joy. I love it. Thank you so much for having me on the show. And please keep up the good work and spreading the word and encouraging women to reinvent themselves, because it's such a wonderful journey. It's so much fun. And you can do it. Don't allow anyone to tell you can't do it. You pray for it, you claim it, and then you go after it.
That's it. That's it. Go for it. It's because it's like someone told me, you know what, you don't have another 20 years in corporate and then decide that you're going to go ahead and do something. You don't have that kind of time. If you are a baby boomer, now is the time. Get yourself a coach, get out of your own way, and go on and do the doggone thing, because people are waiting for you. So that's another soapbox of mine, Casey. I'm getting off of it. But let me thank you for coming. I'm going to have to wrap it up because, honey, your story is so deep until you're definitely going to have to come back. And
I will. I'd love to.
Well,
I'd love to.
Oh, my goodness. And next time I get to Chicago, we're going to get together for some coffee, because I have a family. I was born in Rockford, Illinois, 90 miles northeast. Yeah,
okay,
so
cool. Good.
I'll be back that way in the fall, meet up with some cousins, and then we're going to head for Atlanta. So,
well, I'll see you in L.A. in the next couple of weeks.
Yes, indeed. Yes, indeed. We are both going to be at the Black Writers on Tour. By the time this show airs, that will be a thing of the past. But to show you how dedicated Casey is, she is coming on out to L.A., part of Black Writers on Tour, and she is going to be there with Stars in the Sky. So, gosh, I have to wrap it up, but thank you so much, everyone, for tuning in. There's so much said until you are going to have to listen this time, and then you're going to have to listen again, because she dropped us so many nuggets. There's no way you can pick up everything in one listening. I do appreciate you, audience, listening, and gosh, I am giddy beside myself. So all that I can say, lest I ramble, thanks for tuning in, and until next episode, next week, bye-bye.
Thank you for listening to Her Business, Her Voice, Her Conversation with Margot Levette. Since you like what you heard, go over to margotlevette.com to get updates and show notes. Be sure to let family, friends, and colleagues know about the show. Margot returns next week with a brand new dialogue on Her Business, Her Voice, Her Conversation.
VercayRadio.com, certified #1 digital talk radio station in the world. The power of women.